Hello, it's Mr. Van Dong here with week 5, day 1 math instruction for you right now. We're jumping into chapter 12. It's the final chapter of our math book. That's crazy, right? Can you believe we're this far? I can't. It's pretty nuts. All right, so chapter is geometry. And for the most part, it's actually the same things that you've been working on since 3rd grade until we get to the end. So it's mostly review, but so much of geometry's foundational skill in elementary school is based on learning words like polygon, congruent, and regular, and knowing what those things are so that we can talk about geometrical figures fluently as we move into studying them in more depth in middle and high school. None of these words, for example, none of these words are new, but if I were to ask you to write down a definition for each of them right now, could you do it? Probably a lot of us would have a really hard time doing that because it's been a long time. It's, you studied this in 4th grade, probably at the end of the year, and in 3rd grade at some point. And it's just something that we know kids have to take several hits at for it to stick. So the beginning of the chapter is mostly based on examining and classifying shapes based on special words like these ones. And then we're going to get into some perimeter area and in 5th grade volume. And so that's kind of where we're headed in this chapter. But today you are on page 903 of your math book, and we're doing polygons right here. So polygons, what are polygons? It says right at the top, polygon is a closed figure made up of line segments that do not cross each other. So it's a closed figure of line segments, which basically means straight lines that don't go on forever. So closed figure of line segments. Line segment has 2 endpoints, a start and a stop point. And they don't cross each other. That don't cross. Now, the book has great illustrations of this, okay? So you can see 4 examples of polygons, and some of them are shapes that look familiar, and some of them are weird, like that 3D looking check mark thing. That's still a polygon because it's a closed figure. Closed figure means that like you could shade it in all the way, like you could color in the lines, so to speak. And it's made up of line segments. The lines don't go off forever somewhere, and none of the lines cross each other. And there's some really good non-examples here. Why is that not a polygon? Did you say because it has curved lines instead of line segments? You'd be right. That's why it's not. Because it is a closed figure, and none of the lines cross each other, but it's not made up of line segments. This next one, it's got line segments. None of the line segments cross each other, but it's not closed, right? It's got an open lid. This cool flag looking thing also doesn't have line segments. It has 2 line segments, and then it's also got these like curvy lines. So those are not line segments. Line segments have to be straight as an arrow. And then here, this is almost a polygon, but some of the line segments cross over each other. So we could classify this as 2 different polygons, like there's a triangle and there's a triangle and they're touching, but that figure in and of itself, not a polygon. Okay, so those are some examples there. Now, the next thing that we need to know is the word congruent. Congruent is just the fancy geometry word for equal. And I'm literally going to write that. It's just a fancy geometry word for equal. So if I'm going to say 2 shapes are congruent, I'm saying that they're the same. I'm saying they're equal. So congruent just is a fancy word for equal, okay? Now, regular has to do with types of polygons. So every shape, when we're classifying, okay, so let's talk about humans. Humans love to classify things. We've got, for whatever reason, we really like to organize things and put them into categories. So you probably do this for fun sometimes. I'm sure you did it for fun when you were a little kid. I watch my daughter do it all the time. She goes around our house and she'll grab everything that is red and put it in a pile. And she'll grab everything that is yellow and she'll put it in a pile. She's classifying based on the color of something. And then sometimes she'll then go get everything that is circular or round. She'll put those in a pile, and everything that has like a square, put those in a pile. We're classifying things all the time around us. We love to classify things. What color hair do you have? Okay, everybody with brown hair, go over there. Blonde hair, go over there. We're always doing this. A library is just full of books classified based on what they're about, and then based on the author's last name with the alphabet. So the way that we organize systems of organisms, that we talk about living things, is all based on classification. We're always classifying things. It helps us stay organized, and we really like to do it. So shapes in geometry, it's the same thing. So we've got like, if you draw something, we're going to call that a figure. And if you draw something that is a closed figure made up of line segments that do not cross, we're going to call those polygons. And then within the category of polygons, we've got other subcategories based on, well, if it has 3 sides, we're going to call it a triangle. If it has 4, we're going to call it a quadrilateral, and so on. And then there's even special types of those. We're like, well, if it's a 3-sided polygon, triangle, and it's got a right angle, we're going to call it a right triangle. So all we're doing in these first sections is talking about the system of classification for shapes. That's all it is, with the fancy words instead, which you do want to know. You do want to use the fancy words. Okay, so regular is a special type of polygon where all of the line segments are congruent, where all of the straight lines in the polygon are perfectly equal. They're congruent. So that first example problem, example 1, take a look at it now. You can see the Pentagon, which is a government building in Washington, D.C., where for the 5 branches of the military. It's a pentagon. Penta literally means 5. Poly means many. So polygon just means many-sided, and pentagon means 5-sided. We have triangles, 3-sided polygons. We have quadrilaterals, which are 4. We have pentagons. There are hexagons. Guess what hexa means? 6. There are septagons, which we don't really talk about very much, but that would be a 7-sided polygon. There are octagons, or stop signs with 8 sides. I think nonagon is 9. I can't remember. And then there is a special word, like a prefix for each of them. But we're not really worried about most of them. We'll see on the next page. We'll kind of get to the ones that are most important that we're going to classify. But in any case, a regular polygon is when the polygon sides are all congruent. So you can see here, does it look like each side of the pentagon is totally equal to every other side, or is one longer than the other? They're all equal, right? So we would call this a regular pentagon. It is a regular pentagon because it's a polygon with all congruent sides, or line segments if I'm going to be more specific, but we can just think of them as sides. It's fine. So we know what polygons are, we know what congruent means, and we know that a regular polygon is when all of the sides are congruent. Okay, look at example 2 there. This is a hexagon. Why is it a hexagon? There's 6 sides, okay? And it is a polygon because it's a closed figure made up of line segments that don't overlap. All right, so the question is this hexagon regular? In other words, are all of its sides equal? Well, at a glance, you can pretty quick, you don't need to get out a ruler. You can see that what I'm going to call the top and the bottom, those are longer than these other sides. So like this side is congruent to this side, and then all of these 4 sides are congruent to each other, but they're not all congruent. Therefore, it is not a regular polygon. We would say it's an irregular polygon. It's not regular is all you have to say. Okay, so it's not regular. Turn the page. Got a little table here on the next page to fill out with these are in 5th grade. These are the special names for polygons that you are expected to know. You can see that we've got, as mentioned before, triangles, which are 3-sided objects. So fill this in. Number of sides, there are 3. Quadrilateral, as you can see, there are 4 sides. That's what quad means. Penta is 5. Hexa is 6. We skip septagons. If you want a fun challenge, try to draw a regular septagon without a ruler, by the way. Super hard for your brain to do. It's probably why we skip it. If you're watching this, you have internet access, so maybe look up, Google regular septagon, SEPTA is septa. And it's a strange looking object. It's kind of, it's weird how our brains aren't used to 7-sided objects and we can't do it. Anyway, and then there's octagons, and they give you an example of the regular and there's only one version of a regular everything. There's no other way to draw a regular quadrilateral than as a square. It's impossible. You can't draw it another way. Okay. Wait, am I lying? Regular quadrilaterals. Oh, shoot, I just lied to you. So in, I think, all of the other cases, I literally picked the one that's not true. You could have a rhombus instead of a square, and that would still be a regular quadrilateral. You know what? I'm going to look that up. I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to look that up right now, because not regular, they literally have a rhombus. And I know I'm kind of getting, some of you right now are like, Mr. Van Dung, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's just like class when Mr. Van Dung gets distracted. Okay, I'll be right back, and I'm going to tell you about regular quadrilaterals in 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I'm so glad I looked it up because I hate lying to children. So the first thing that I said, if I just wouldn't have second-guessed myself, I would have been fine. The first thing I said was correct. The only regular quadrilateral is a square. And the reason why is because I wrote an incomplete definition up here. It's regular polygons are polygons with all congruent sides and interior angles. And interior angles. And this interior angles business, it only matters for the quadrilateral. So just don't stress about it. But it's got to have congruent sides and angles to be regular. Because notice that their example here, if you bust out a ruler, this is the fancy word for this is a rhombus, and we'll learn more about that later when we're spending a whole lesson on classifying quadrilaterals. All of those sides are congruent, but the angles inside the polygon are not. And so that's why that is an irregular or not regular version of a quadrilateral. Okay, so thank you for coming on that journey with me into exactly what would and would not be a regular quadrilateral. Fill out this chart with the number of sides, and then draw another polygon that is not regular, a different example from one that's there. You can just start like making lines and then make sure that you connect them again. But they can't cross over each other, and they got to be straight, so no curvy lines. Okay, so fill that out. If you need to pause the video and then fill it out, feel free to do that. Okay, and then we're back. Let's do the guided practice together, and then I'm going to release you to do the rest of the assignment on your own. Guided practice. This happy bus says, name the polygon. It's not actually what it says, but I got distracted. Sometimes I feel like these things are not helpful. Ooh, look how cool the illustrations are. And it's like, I'm just distracted by the happy bus. Okay, I'm focused. I'm focused on the guided practice. Name the polygon. Determine if it appears to be regular or irregular. To name the polygon, you need to count the number of sides it has. Ooh, Mr. Van Dung, I noticed that a polygon always has the same number of interior angles as sides. Good job, imaginary student in my head. That's true. So you also could count the number of interior angles. How many little angles are there? I pointed to the answer. Oops. How many little interior angles are there in there? That would also tell you the type of polygon it is. Okay, so what type is it? It's got 8 sides and 8 interior angles. So it's an octagon. It's an octagon, okay? And is it regular or is it not regular? Spoiler alert, right up there. You just have to look. All the sides are congruent. All the interior angles are congruent. And so, yes, it is regular. All right, so you're going to continue working on the next 2 pages, following the directions to determine if there's 2 things to do on all these problems. A lot of times kids are like, it's a quadrilateral, and they just move on. Read the directions, okay? On most of these problems, there's going to be several things to do. You need to name the polygon, and you need to determine if it's regular or irregular, okay? So say if it's regular or not. Down here, you're drawing these. Please draw them as best you can. If you want to bust out a straight edge and make them look bellissimo, then do it. Notice that it tells you if they want it to be regular or not regular, okay? And then on the back page, there is more to do. There's these cool little, look at all the different polygon shapes you can make when you look at maps or when you look at honeycomb designs and things like that. determine the answer to each question based on the shapes that you're looking at here, and then read those and answer as normal. So just like usual, you're going to work for no more than 45 minutes and minus the length of this video. If you finish everything early, check your work and move on to the next thing. See you guys tomorrow.